I think the Europeans are in a very, very difficult position. I think that most of the leaders live in a world that is occupied also by leaders here in the United States. And I see that in Europe everywhere. I mean, even if you don't believe in polling, the feeling of the French people, and I have family in France, the feeling of the French people towards Emmanuel Macron is, to say the least, he's a clown. He's a person they do not take seriously. They feel absolutely no loyalty to that I can perceive. And it's not all that different in many of the other countries of Europe. I mean, crystal clearly, the conservatives in England, they're just waiting for the election they know they will lose to arrive. The Germans are confused about a coalition that barely holds itself together, that has nothing to do with the socialism of Olaf Scholz, has even less to do with whatever the word green means in politics, because the German Green Party is disconnected from almost anything one can think of other than hostility to Russia and excitement about Ukraine. And indeed, when one looks at Europe, one sees the minute you go below the surface, people who are very disconnected from their European foreign policy. What is this all about? They are holding on to their Atlantic alliance, but that's because these are mostly older politicians who have been allied with the United States and Britain for so long, they don't have any other place to go politically. But the young people and the people coming up and those who are not tied in to the old European alliance with the United States, they are very unhappy about where things are going. Let me turn to the economics, which makes it even sharper. The world is dividing into two major economic blocks. The decline of the American empire is happening together with the decline of the American bloc, or if you like, the G7, the United States, Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Canada, and Japan. That's the G7. The alternative bloc is the BRICS, the original BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and now the addition of the 6 new countries that were brought in. Okay, if you look at the total GDP of the G7, it's about 29% of global production happens in the G7. In the BRICS, before adding the 6 new ones, it was 33%. That's a complete new world economically. It is just a new world. And notice, please, that the Europeans are not even in the story. There is no European bloc. What the Europeans have is a position for their 4 major economies, Britain, France, Germany, and Italy, as a junior partner in the declining American bloc. That's a very poor position for Europe. Remember, the last empire was the British Empire, and it struggled to control the world. And who did it struggle against? Mostly the French and German and Belgian empires. All of that is gone. All of that has left Europe not knowing which way to go, being out of the other islands. The biggest question, if you're honest, in the core of the European economy, namely Germany, but similar questions are being asked among European industrialists, is which way should we go? Is our future with the BRICS, or is our future with the G7? the mere fact that that is a question they have to ask themselves, and they do, because that is the great question for their immediate future, tells you that they are in the position of deciding which way to go, because in neither case will they be dominant. They are not in that position. They've lost that position. They haven't been able to get Europe together. They haven't been able to shape a European position. Watching the collapse of Europe into a chorus on Ukraine, with the exception of, Hungary and one or two others, is watching the Europeans unable to make their own politics. Even the Ukrainians would be better off if Europe had its own strategy, had its own point of view, that the Ukrainians could then try to play the Americans off of the Europeans, both of them against the Russians and the Chinese. But the Ukrainians lack a Europe to deal with. All they do is ask the Europeans to provide what the Americans no longer will do, which the Europeans are doing again, at least some of them. Although the political wind, and not just in Italy, we saw that a week ago in the Netherlands, the Ukrainians are losing friends in Europe, and Europe has many, many reasons to cut its dependence on the United States and on the Ukrainians. These are real problems that no amount of political pretense is going to make go away.